So we are discussing how the mind, we have discussed when we practice, according to the scripture, very intelligently arranged. When we practice, we first, in order to be awakened, we have first to understand cessation. That means we have to have awareness and the unwholesome thoughts are harming. You may think this is very easy, but it is not so easy. When we have unwholesome thoughts, we immediately become aware we have unwholesome thoughts, and we do not let them continue. Even though it is not yet a real enlightenment, it is an enlightenment. Because you understand also, even though only by faith, that there is a situation where these unwholesome thoughts do not arise anymore. So this is the really awakening of the faith. This awakening of the faith is not so difficult, not so easy. It is very difficult to see very clearly that the thoughts are harming us and that we have responsibility for our thoughts. This is the advantage of Buddhism, when we understand it. We are responsible for all our defilements because of our bad habits in the past. We do not see how these unwholesome thoughts are harmful. So we don't stop them immediately. When our faith has grown, then we do not let them continue. That's why, even according to Visuddhimagga also, the Putujana, even so he is just a Putujana, he has not seen the ultimate reality. He can do infinite good deeds. He can even teach the Arahats. And most of the Bodhisattvas, they are Putujanas, but knowingly Putujanas, because they want to attain not only Sotapanna, they want to attain the suchness, which is much more difficult. To attain suchness means the samadhi of suchness. And this samadhi of suchness, same like the experience of nirvana, even so it can be very short. It will completely make revolution in our mind. When we experience nirvana for the first time, it is just a moment, but it completely changes our life. When we realize this first bhumi, it is also maybe only the moment, but this moment will make a revolution. Whenever, just like in jhana, I have explained, when we realize jhana, we don't need any effort. We can recollect immediately this conditioning and the object, and we don't need much trouble. It is there deep in the memory. Suppose we have the unwholesome karma, like we kill someone. It will accompany us for many, many lives, because it makes a very deep, if we kill by intention, out of anger, not as a soldier or so, even so it is not good, that will be different, because we are not doing it for ourselves. But if we out of gain, we want to take something, we kill someone, or the worse, we kill some relative or the father, mother, then we cannot forget it. We want to forget it, it will be there. Similarly, when you have a powerful, wholesome mind, you will remember it all life. And the dhyana is a very powerful, wholesome mind, and the direct seeing of nirvana is also very powerful, wholesome mind. So the result will be you can recollect it anytime you want. So you get more easily peace in the mind. So the Putujana, he can do many good deeds. Even so, he is still a Putujana, but one who really becomes a Sotapanna, he can still only think about his own liberation. And that is why there is a story even in Visuddhimagga, the Putujana, he can be teacher of the Arahats. Why not? Because he does not let his unwholesome mind continue, and he trains himself like that. So now, if we have learned, if we meditate based on the idea of real object, which is there, that means using the differentiating mind, we still differentiate between the ultimate reality and the conventional reality. We still differentiate between the nirvana and the samsara. So it is a wonderful, we can get peace in the mind, but still it is not from this non-dualistic perspective. It is not. It is similar to realization, but not a full realization. The fuller that realization is based on observation of the mindfulness of the impermanence. The impermanence belongs to the mind which is holding to the object as something really being there. Right? We have to see it very clearly. That is why in Sanskrit I have explained the object means alambana, something we can hang our mind on. But on the suchness, on the nirvana, you cannot hang the mind. So it is real. So when you have direct experience of the suchness, you can go to the samadhi of the suchness, which is the samadhi explained here, samadhi of one samskara, that eventually the movement becomes vipassana, and that which does not move becomes shamatha. Then you can combine shamatha and vipassana together. And vipassana means actually the light of the mind in this tradition, which is non-dualistic. No matter whether the mind moves or does not move, light stays. So then when we develop the paramis, we can eventually realize the full Buddhahood, which is the awareness and suchness become one. This is the philosophy of this book. So we understand it from the end, because first we have to leave the unwholesome thoughts, then we have to meditate on impermanence. Once you have practically no unwholesome thoughts, or very little unwholesome thoughts, it's very easy to get the realization. Because we have many unwholesome thoughts, then it is difficult. This is the same principle in all religions, finally. We don't need to become Buddhists to understand it. When we have unwholesome thoughts, we don't see the Buddha nature, we don't see the God, we don't see the ultimate reality, however you conceive it to be. Then, when you meditate on impermanence, you will get realization, but that realization will be based on differentiation. When you meditate on suchness, you get a realization, but that realization will be based on non-differentiating mind. Then, when you become the Buddha, the ultimate realization, your awareness becomes the suchness becomes the awareness. This is the Chittamatrata. So, the suchness and awareness will merge into one. Now, in order to get to this kind of realization, the skillful means of the Yogacara or of the Chittamatrata is to meditate on the alaya consciousness. The Madhyamika does not accept the alaya consciousness, but finally it comes to the same. Alaya consciousness is a means. Vasubandhu also explains. When you realize the true mind, then nothing is really there, nothing really is not really there. That is a middle way. That is same. But in order not to be mistaken about the shunyata, the Yogacara is very useful. And you can mix them together. Tibetan Buddhism is a mixture of Yogacara and Madhyamika. Our discussion should not, I have heard Khyentse Rinpoche saying that our discussion should not be between Yogacara and Madhyamika, but should be between the materialism and the spirituality. This is what is the theme of today. I have overheard in the internet something saying like that. So the mind here moves from the back. You have to give. You have to cease the unwholesome thought. Then you be aware of the change. When you succeed in attaining that which is beyond the change directly by the mind, then you contemplate that which stands and does not change. And when you succeed in contemplating that which does not change, then you can become the Buddha. But if you base yourself on differentiation, you become only an Arahat. If you base yourself on non-differentiation, you become the suchness itself, which is the aim of Bodhisattva. Right? And now we come to understanding of the alaya. And that we started yesterday. To understand the alaya, we have to understand non-enlightenment. We are in the state of non-enlightenment, therefore we understand the process of enlightening. Shijie, because of Pujie. Shijie means a process. Our mind is a process. Ignorance is a process. Enlightenment is a process. Everything we experience is a process. It comes according to this principle. So ignorance is a process, and the root of this process is that mind itself creates the illusion of duality. So from the very beginning, you start with the theory at least, which is non-dualistic. This duality is there, that the wall is there. It does not mean when we die the mountains are not there. It does not make any sense. Right? But this division between the object and the subject comes from the mind itself. And that is very important to understand. From which mind? The alaya mind. From the mind which dwells on the object. Lankavatara Sutra says, this is kind of a commentary to Lankavatara Sutra. This is the sutra that Bodhidharma brought to China, so the tradition. Lankavatara says, because you hold to the mind, you see the object as something being outside. This is very important principle for understanding Chittamatrata. No object is outside, but because you hold to the mind, you see the object as something being outside the mind. But it was never outside the mind. That is why, according to the same sutra, the mind, and here also, the mind is body. Body is a mind, but it is covered by deep levels of ignorance, so that we do not see it. But the realization is precisely that. Body is a mind. Where else can you find any body? The body is the nature of the mind. We are lost in samsara because we don't know our own nature. This is Zen. So we learn our own nature, and that is a process of enlightenment. Shi Jie. Shi means beginning. We are always beginning because we realize that this mind cannot be suchness. So always beginning. When you get to the real beginning, you are the fully enlightened Buddha. The mind itself becomes a suchness. Then there is no beginning and no the end. Now there is beginning. You know that your mind is not suchness. Right? That is a great awakening. That is Satori. Kaiwu. Kai Wu means literally opening. Wu means wisdom, opening the wisdom, opening the light of the mind. Wu, our friend Tenzing is very interested in Chinese. Wu means heart and eye. Left side is heart, the right side is eye. Wu. Very interesting Chinese. Heart and eye becomes wisdom. Kai means open. So this is the meaning of Dhamma Chakku, the Panya Chakku. So, because we have the karmic mind, so we are not one. This is a problem. Kaiwula. We are not one because we have the karmic mind. And because we have the karmic mind, we separate the seer from the seen. Huh? When you come to the beginning, you have no more karmic mind, no more mind which dwells. Then the distinction between the seer and the seen also disappears in like a dream. You wake up. This distinction is like a dream. That is why in the Yogacara philosophy, the first thing you see the 20 verses of the Chittamatrata, 30 verses of the Chittamatrata, commentaries, very important understanding. There is no real difference between the dream and the awakened state. The mind has in the dream and in non-awakened state the same nature. That means it is imbued by the karmic consciousness. We see things subjectively, not objectively. So whenever there is karmic consciousness, there is a seer and the seen. You cannot avoid it. When there is a seer and the seen, on the base of perceiving the real object outside, which does not exist, therefore very important to see that in the state of awakening, in the state of dream, it is only one consciousness. In the dream we see what we have been thinking about, but we see it in a different manner. And in this seeing, we also see how our body reacts. Most of the dreams are just conditionings of the body. Most of our behavior in the world is also conditioning of the body. When body is very agitated, we have agitated dreams. When body has calmed down, we don't have agitated dreams. So when we have not penetrated the alaya consciousness, so the next consciousness that comes is a consciousness which differentiates between the object and the subject. And these consciousnesses, there are six. Six such consciousnesses which differentiate between subject and the object. The first two are very subtle. So in the continuity of this text, we don't have enough time. You have the mana consciousness, he calls it manas, individualizing consciousness, is of 5 kinds. The 3 you have learned, and now comes the next 2, which are very subtle, which the Bodhisattva sees very clearly, but if you rely on a differentiating mind, you do not see them very clearly. They are subtle. They are subtle, but still already you are in the reality of the seer and seen as being different. Do you understand? Difficult to understand. So they are the gross states of consciousness. This is the most subtle state of consciousness, which is difficult to see. But you can see that is very important in daily life, in meditation also. If you do not think anything, where is your mind? If you don't have any object, In the mind, where is the mind? It is the alaya mind. The mind is still there. The objects are still there, but there is no real seer and the seen, right? Only when you take any attention to any object in particular, there will be seer and the seen. If you don't take any object in particular, don't take any nimitta, when you take nimitta of the object, you then differentiate pleasant, unpleasant, and you behave accordingly. So the first rough consciousness is the consciousness based on the illusionary idea of there being subject and object separated, and this consciousness is called, it is the aspect of zhixiang. Zhi means actually knowing, but zhi also means wisdom. In this tradition, knowing is a wisdom. Actually, real knowing is enlightenment, but here already it is not enlightenment. It is like in Abhidharma, we have the northern Abhidharma, they use for panya, or pragya, they use mati. Mati means differentiating wisdom. It is even maybe used in Hindi. Yeah? So you call it mati. This and the explanation is, if you have a real object, gochara literally means where the cow of the mind is finding pasture. Go means cow, chara is a pasture. If the mind has an object, where are we? If there is the gochara bhaga, we had the bhaga, the aspect of karma, the aspect bhaga here, best translated as aspect. If you have the aspect of the real object, which is based on the idea that there is the seer and the seen as a separate from each other. In other words, because there is a real seer, there is this illusionary seeing of the object as being something real. So, in other words, the text says, if there is an aspect of the seer, automatically the illusionary idea of there being the khyati vijnana, the aspect of the seen as separate from the seer, will appear. But it is illusion. So, if you are subjected to this illusion of the real object, you cannot avoid the 6 gross aspects of the consciousness. The first one is this aspect of mati, of differentiating. And it only happens if there is a separate seer and the seen. And this aspect of differentiating consciousness is that on the base of the separate object, the mind will give rise to the differentiating consciousness of what is pleasant and unpleasant, manapa, amanapa. Huh? So, in other words, there appears the Vedana, which automatically differentiates between pleasant and unpleasant and takes it for something real. This is really pleasant, this is really unpleasant. Therefore, it naturally holds to the pleasant and wants to reject the unpleasant, right? So all this happens based on Vedana. If you understand that all this differentiation between subject and the object is the illusion of the mind, you don't hold to the Vedana. Right? Can you see it very clearly? Because we cling to this differentiation that the object and the subject are separated, we cling to the Vedana. So we do not penetrate the Vedana, so we cannot go beyond the Vedana. So when you are under the delusion that there is a real object separated from the seer, then immediately you have pleasant or unpleasant Vedana, and the result will be what? Next will be the aspect of continuity. The continuity of the consciousness is based on the idea that this pleasant Vedana is real, unpleasant Vedana is real. It is something to hold. From that comes the consciousness of continuity. But actually, the mind appears and disappears in every moment. That is very difficult to understand. Therefore, you need a very subtle consciousness. This subtle consciousness needs some deep understanding of the non-dual state. So these 5 consciousnesses, now how does he describe the consciousness of continuity? When you have the differentiating consciousness, the differentiating wisdom, then automatically there is sukha, dukkha, and based on this sukha, dukkha, the thoughts arise without interruption. In other words, there arise habit. Our habit is our continuity of the mind. This is very deep. The Buddha has no continuity of the mind, therefore he becomes suchness. Our continuity of the mind is based on our habits, and this is very, very subtle. You need a very subtle consciousness to be aware of it. Do we understand each other? So, in order to see this, you have to become the Bhumi Bodhisattva. Huh? This is very difficult. Even the Sotapanna, the Sakadagami, Anagami, they will not understand it. If the Arahat understands it, he will become a Bodhisattva. If the Sotapanna understands it, he will become a Bodhisattva. But if they are not motivated, they will not become a Bodhisattva. So, in this tradition, you have Niyata Araha and Aniyata Araha. Niyata Arahanta, Aniyata Arahanta. If you give rise to great compassion, you can, this Sotapanna and so on will not be obstacle in realizing the non-dualistic mind. But if you motivate it, everything depends on your motivation. If you motivate it just to bring your own suffering to an end, as being an independent seer, and the seen is also there. So you only realize the end of defilements, but you don't realize the end of obstacles to the wisdom. This is the theory of the Yogacara. But it is theory to explain something. It remains only theory. It is to be seen. But it is very helpful theory. And many Theravadins, they actually practice Mahayana, but they will not call it Mahayana because that does not go with the Sangha. No? Mahayana becomes a sect, but it wasn't any sect at all. That is why, to avoid this problem, he says very clearly, the mind is Dharma. So now we come to the more gross distinctions, and distinctions are the mind. We come to the more gross distinctions, and these distinctions are already based on the differentiating consciousness. These subtle distinctions of continuity and differentiation, they belong actually. You have to have non-differentiating wisdom to see them very clearly, that they are obstacles. To become an arahat, they are not really obstacles, but to become a fully enlightened Buddha, they are obstacles. Because this arahat does not need to remove habits, but the bodhisattva wants to remove all habits to become dharma. Therefore he meditates. Mind is a dharma, you have learned, right? And the real mind is a Buddha mind. So all this makes sense, but you have to put it together, and that is difficult. For that we need some commentaries, we need some competent teacher. If we just read the text, very difficult. So we come to the third mind, third gross mind. This third gross mind is because you rely on your Vedana. So you have the aspect of the mind which is grasping, upadana. the upadana aspect of the mind, the grasping aspect of the mind. So, because of this continuity aspect of the consciousness, you continue to think about the object of being something outside. Huh? So, you want to appropriate. Huh? Upadana is appropriation. You want to appropriate it, right? Pancha upadana skandha. So, because you believe that this continuity of the mind is real, huh? This habit is that you have developed is real, huh? And what you see through your habit is real. Huh? So, you continue to think about the outer object as something being real also, huh? And due to that, you grasp upadana, you grasp for pleasant or unpleasant sensation. So, the mind produces grasping. The mind produces grasping based on continuity. If you don't believe in continuity, if you have broken the continuity, you have broken the grasping. So you have to see very clearly the continuity is illusionary. Then you can break the grasping. The arahat can also break the grasping. You don't need to practice the bodhisattva path. When you are an arahat, you have no more grasping, no more upadana. But in this tradition, it is not yet perfect because you still keep your habits. You still rely on the continuity of the mind, right? It makes sense? So, because this illusionary thinking is based on our clinging to Vedana, clinging to feeling, clinging to sensation, we all the time give rise to illusionary thoughts. I want this, I want that, I don't need this, I don't want it. And so we waste our precious energy. So, next step is when we do that, then we hold to the names and our concepts as being the reality. This is due to appropriation, we hold to our names and concepts as representing the reality. That is the fourth gross aspect of the mind when we distinguish the object and the seen and the seer as something separate. It will come. It will come if we believe that this object has a svabhava, has its own nature. No? Very difficult to avoid. If you believe that the object has its own nature, you will have illusionary thoughts and you will hold to the illusionary thoughts as being the reality. Then you hold to the names, grasp for the names, grasp for the concepts. So, because of illusionary idea of appropriating something on the base of Vedana, right? Because you always think that this object that you see outside is something real and you think about it, So you have the illusionary grasping, and you differentiate this object of grasping, which are your concept, as being something real, which exists as separate entity in the reality. So, because you believe that your concepts, which are subjective, are the objective reality, and you hold to that reality, what happens? You again keep on producing the aspect of the mind which gives rise to karma. So, due to this aspect of the mind which gives rise to karma, you believing in the concepts, in the names, sentences, syllables, your generalization or particularization as being something real, being same as a meaning. So, you search reality in the name and keep on holding. And because of that, you produce all kinds of karma. Can be positive, can be negative. All is based on your holding to the names. That's why we learn the karma, what is to be seen. Karma is one has to penetrate, with wisdom, one cannot push it away, impossible. Even Angulimala, you know the story of Angulimala. He has killed 999 living beings, and he becomes an arahat. How is it possible? Because he has penetrated this. The consciousness which gives rise to karma is based on the illusionary holding to the concepts, to the names, to the subjective ideas. He did it because he was a very wise person, but he did it due to devotion to his teacher. So he was not grasping for...
which can take its place.
Did it run out a long time ago?
No, just this moment.
It is a red light here. It's okay? The red is good, green is good.
Green is good.
So we have hope, no? If only green is good and red not good, so we have no hope, no? Okay. One has to have fun learning Dharma, otherwise it becomes just blind learning, no? And this should not happen. That's why a good teacher has always some good stories in the store. So here we are, we don't cling to reality which we don't know, we cling to the names we give to the reality. This is Yogacara. But these names, they have no own characteristic whatsoever. This is what is to be penetrated. So, based on clinging to the names, we produce tanha. Thirst. We want to get the names which we have created. Beautiful woman. The new car. The new house. These are just concepts. But people don't cling to reality, they cling to concepts. We don't know reality. You have to be enlightened to know reality. We cling to the concepts of reality. And everybody has a different concept of beauty, of ugliness, of desirable, of non-desirable. Right? We have to penetrate it, we have to see it very clearly. What we consider desirable, the other may consider the most undesirable. And this is true even to the same group of beings, to the humans, not to speak about the other groups of being gods or animals or denizens of hell or whatever. So our reality is completely subjective, and this subjective reality is our alaya, but we don't see it usually. So it continues because holding to the concepts we have of reality, we produce all kinds of karma. Then comes the aspect, the final aspect, the aspect of bondage to the karma. When we hold to the concepts, we are bound to produce karma. When we produce karma, we are bound to the karma. And this is the aspect of suffering. Our consciousness is suffering. Our consciousness is suffering because it is bound by the karma. If we are not bound by the karma, we are not suffering. Bye-bye suffering. We are bound by the karma. No bye-bye suffering. And due to being bound by the suffering, we have no real freedom, zhai. No, we have no freedom to feel pleasant when we want to transfer the unpleasant into the pleasant, to transform the pleasant into the unpleasant. This is the freedom of the Buddha. So we are subjective to avijja, to the ignorance. And we should know that it is only ignorance which produces all kinds of defiled phenomena. Only ignorance produces the defiled phenomena. The true mind does not produce any defiled phenomena. Only ignorance produces a defiled phenomena. And it produces a defiled phenomena because of this aspect of suffering by being bound to karma. So it is to be realized that all the defiled phenomena, they are nothing else but the aspect of no body of the mind. Pu-jue. Jue has a character of seeing. We don't see directly things as they are. That means we don't see our Buddha nature. So why you should not hate another being? Because all beings have the Buddha nature. Why should not you grasp to the other being? Because he has a Buddha nature also. So this is very powerful, skillful means for making the mind healthy. When you understand as this, as Lankavatara Sutra teaches, that Buddha cannot teach reality. Buddha can only teach the skillful methods of seeing reality. No? And this is a very powerful, skillful method. So, enough for today, right? We come to question and answers. I hope it will be useful for you. And this non-dualistic philosophy, no matter whether we believe in Buddhism, we believe in the Upanishads, we believe in the Jaina philosophy, this non-dualistic approach is the best. There is no better approach. So Nagarjuna is the best interpreter of Buddhism. Shankaracharya is the best interpreter of the Upanishads. The non-dualistic interpretation of our experience is the best. So, any questions?
I think it's going to work, yeah. You just need to use, there's a battery bank in here. I think you just have to hold the whole thing. Sure. Sorry.
I think when we talk about the non-dual method is the best, then where does form worship come into the non-dual?
Because we human beings, We cannot immediately meditate on the reality as it really is. We need the symbols of this reality. We need something we can rely on. But the Buddha, he is in nirvana. But these virtues of Avalokiteshvara, the compassion, the virtues of Manjushri, the transcendental wisdom, the virtues of Samantabhadra, the enlightened behavior, and so on, the virtues of Kshitigarbha, the virtue of determination to accept the hell as part of you. All these virtues, they're very easy to absorb if you personify them. But they are part of the enlightened nature.
So, dear friends, apologies. In order to, I think, hear the questions, we will need to just come here and use this microphone.
That is why in Judaism you have the worship of the patriarchs. In the Christianity you have the worship of the Jesus and the saints. In Islam you have the worship of the Sufis. That approaches us to the ultimate reality. So it is very, very useful. In a Sikh religion you have also worship of the saints. No, it is very important. Guru Nanak is a symbol of the highest. No, when you think of Guru Nanak, you don't think of the person, but you think of the highest. No. Very wonderful story of the Guru Nanak, you know, I have heard. Do you know about this story? The Guru Nanak, he went to Mecca for the pilgrimage, you know this story? Then he was sleeping with his feet to this black stone, how do you call it? This, Kaaba. He was sleeping, then came the guard, and wanted to beat him, and he says very gently, "Sahib, please turn my feet to the direction where there is no God." He was straight. Very famous story. So this is why this non-dualistic approach is so useful. The mind, the sentient beings, and the Buddha, they are one. They are not different. When you meditate on Manjushri, you don't meditate on the person, you meditate on the highest reality. Then it makes sense. When you meditate on Avalokiteshvara, you don't meditate on the person, you meditate on the highest reality. Then they will reveal themselves to you. This is how our mind works. We understand Amurti through the Murti.